Welcome to our program tonight and happy Native Plant Appreciation Month. It is April, so that means we are fully into Native Plant Appreciation Month. My name is Gina Bono, and I'm a member and volunteer with the Portland chapter of the Native Plant Society of Oregon. NPSO promotes the enjoyment, knowledge, and protection of Oregon's native plants. I'd especially like to welcome any of our new members tonight. As part of our mission, we present a speaker each month on timely topics of botanical interest. Tonight's speaker is going to be Dr. Gerald Carr, botanist and photographer, and we will get to his presentation in just a minute. Before we get started, I'd like to review some Zoom etiquette. So please leave your audio and video turned off during the program. After the presentation, we'll have time to unmute and turn cameras on. This is a great opportunity for new members to introduce themselves, as well as for everyone to connect with each other virtually. If you have a question during the program, you can click the chat button at the bottom of your screen and type it into the chat box. Dr. Carr will address questions after the slideshow. We've also added a closed captioning feature. So if you click live transcripts, you can enable that feature as well. Looking ahead to our May 12th program, that will be with David Anderson and Andrew Stern, and their talk is titled In Search of the Wild Rhododendron. So please register for that either through our quarterly Calicortis publication or through the meetup page. As I mentioned, April is Native Plant Appreciation Month, and I will be giving a virtual presentation next week, April 21st on Thursday at 7 p.m. And that will be an introduction to plant families. So if you're interested in joining me for that next Thursday, we'll put a link for the registration in the chat, or you can find it in the March Calicortis as well. If you missed Gabriel Campbell's presentation last week, A Beginner's Guide to Plant Identification, you can now view the recording of that on our YouTube page, which is linked through our website, which is portlandnativeplants.org. And if you click on the events tab, you can find the link to that YouTube recording. And with that, I will get to our treasurer, Lisa Shaw. Thank you, Lisa. And she will be introducing our speaker tonight. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you very much, Gina. Yes, I'm the treasurer. And so while I still have my treasurer hat on, I want to let you know that if you haven't claimed your renewing membership discount on the Big Cartel for buying a new t-shirt, we also have new bandanas to check out. So the season is coming and they're larger and more useful than our previous ones. So please check out through the website or directly at Big Cartel, portlandnativeplants.org. So tonight, we definitely have a distinguished speaker. And this is one of those people that I kept hearing his name and I kept saying, why do I keep hearing this person's name? And I thought, well, it's because I've, Frank talks about him. And then I realized that I was seeing his photos in both the iNaturalist and the Oregon Flora and in the Burke Museum collection. So tonight, we have the distinct pleasure of welcoming back to the Northwest, where he started out in Pasco, Washington, and went to school over there at Eastern Washington University, and then decided he needed a little warmer and headed to the University of California, Davis. He was very involved in labs and the herbariums and kept upping his degrees. And then he went to the University of Hawaii, where he spent 30 years. So he literally has 8 pages of distinguished accomplishments that he has done in the last, shall we say, 6 decades. And then he had decided to return to Oregon, and lives in Corvallis now. He has been an affiliate faculty at the Oregon State University in the botany and plant pathology, and has been involved with the herbarium and the Oregon Flora Project there. He spent over 30 years at the University of Hawaii and at Manoa as a professor, herbarium director, and botany department chair. Like I said, he kind of did that wherever he went. His study of the iconic Hawaiian silversword includes an extensive list of research publications and contributions to the book Tarweeds and Silverswords. Perhaps it's the tarweeds that brought him back to Corvallis. It's a comprehensive look at the evolution and speculation of this broad complex. His work is found in the Flora of North America, the Jepson Manual, and the Flora of Oregon. Currently, he is located in Corvallis, as I said, and contributes to the Oregon Flora Project, which we are now on volume 3. And the unrelated Oregon Flora Image Project, where he has submitted almost 30,000 images to date. So now you know why I keep saying his images. Beautiful photography. You can find his photos on OregonFlora.org or on the Washington State Burke Museum database, which I just recently discovered. And as the majority of images used in the Oregon Wildflowers app, which there's the 2 different Wildflowers of Oregon and Oregon Wildflowers. So both of those include his photography. Tonight, Dr. Carr will be speaking about the rare plants of both Hawaii and Oregon. So please welcome Dr. Gerry Carr. Oh, did I have that up over my face? Sorry, folks. Are you there, Dr. Carr?
I think I am now. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for the kind introduction. Thank you for inviting me to present some of my products of the last, well, here in Oregon, 15, 16 years. Been stymied a little bit by the recent couple of years without the ability to travel very far from home, but hopefully we will all get to have a little bit more freedom in the near future. So I guess it's up to me to share my screen here, if I can manage to do that. And we'll start at the beginning. This is a bit of an exaggeration, but underscores my very early interest in plants and the use of optical instruments such as cameras and microscopes to make very small features appear larger than life. By the time I reached high school, I had decided that botany would be the focus of any advanced studies that I might be fortunate enough to pursue. Upon completing my BA in biology at Eastern Washington University, I completed an MS program in the botany department at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. And yes, I do enjoy coming to a warmer climate from there. My master's thesis concluded that the widespread Rocky Mountain species, Pedicularis perryi, is more appropriately treated as 3 regionally distinct subspecies. Upon completing my MS at Wisconsin, I joined the graduate program at the University of California at Davis, settling on a study of chromosome evolution in the annual tarweed Calicadenia passiflora. Analysis of meiotic pairing configurations and hybrids between individuals from different populations throughout the range of this widespread species revealed the presence of 6 distinctive chromosome races differing in chromosome number and/or structure. I bet you didn't expect to see such beautiful pictures of chromosomes. The plant featured in my dissertation research belongs to a group of genera commonly referred to as tarweeds. This common name is suggested by the sticky resinous secretions characteristic of a distinctive subtribe of the very large sunflower family Asteraceae. Sherwin Carlquist, a well-known plant anatomist who also authored a book on Hawaiian natural history, suggested that this mainland, largely Californian tarweed group represents the nearest relatives to a very diverse cluster of species in Hawaii, best known for the striking Haleakala silversword, Ardrosiphium sambucense. The possible opportunity to continue using familiar biosystematic and cytogenetic tools on a group that I already had success with on the mainland was more than enough to precipitate my application for a recently announced position in plant systematics in the botany department at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. I took this photo soon after my arrival in August, having recently been appointed as assistant professor of botany at the University of Hawaii. Among other amenities, I looked forward to the endless opportunities offered by Hawaii to study plants in the field any day of the year. As it turned out, I had much to learn about botanizing in Hawaii. Alone and in the darkened shell of a barracks building at about 4 a.m. on my first night on the Big Island, I was awakened by the sound of crashing rocks and breaking glass, while this scene was developing a couple hundred yards away. Fearing the makeshift building I was in might not survive another shaking, I decided to see if I could find a better situation. Eventually, I made it to the volcano house, where I had a front row seat when this eruption began. This was my first visit to the Big Island, my first earthquake, and my first volcanic eruption. However, I soon learned that I still had much more to learn about botanizing in Hawaii. This is me and my trusted colleague, the late Charlie Lamoureux, getting a sample of Dubaudia arborea from one of the few plants in the area that had not been devoured by goats. This is an attractive and rare native plant, but I was after an undescribed species of Dubaudia that occurs just a little farther up this narrow volcanic dike trail. Despite its close proximity, I had to wait another year to get material of the new species because I suddenly found myself plummeting toward the soft green blur in the distance. My brain was as fuzzy as this picture. Unfortunately, I eventually realized that seeing my right foot next to my head meant that I had snapped the femur of my right leg near its midpoint. That is when I learned, without doubt, that the buddy system and medevac helicopters can save lives. All of my subsequent helicopter rides were much more pleasant and more productive than my first one. For example, by providing support for research in remote areas. Fortunately, former Vietnam helicopter pilots like Tom Hauptmann don't require heliports. We were dropped off here for a 3-day excursion into the Upper Hana rainforest. Another new species of Dubaudia was collected near the site of this beautiful lake. I'm out of sync here, aren't I? Oh, I haven't been advancing slides. I'm sorry about that. This slide shows a couple more examples of the highly diversified Hawaiian silversword alliance and some of the people who have devoted a large portion of their careers to better understand this remarkable group of plants. On the left is Don Cayos, my former major professor and mentor at UC Davis. On the right, the three silversword stooges. Next to me, Robert Robichaux, University of Arizona. And on the right, Bruce Baldwin from the University of California at Berkeley. The Mauna Kea subspecies of this silversword, not pictured, produces occasional natural hybrids with Dubadia or arborea, the small tree on the left. Where they occur together on Maui, the mat-forming Dubadia scabra produces fertile natural hybrids with the large woody tree, Dubadia reticulata, despite their difference in chromosome number and life form. Dubadia scabra on the lower left and the liana above, Dubadia latifolia, occur on different islands, but when grown together in cultivation and artificially crossed, they also produce fertile hybrids. As indicated in this crossing diagram, natural and artificial hybrids connect 32 species in 3 genera that differ vastly in chromosome number and structure, growth form, and habitat, yet molecular and chromosome data demonstrate their origin about 5 million years ago from a single common ancestor native to Western North America. That's as far as we'll go with the Hawaiian picture. For much more information, there is a book available from the Missouri Botanical Garden Press. We leave Hawaii with my dear friend and colleague, Rob Robichaux, on the summit of Haleakala, quite possibly contemplating silverswords on the rim and in the crater below that form natural hybrids and even back crosses with Dubadia menziesii, the bright green shrub to his right. These are, of course, just a tiny sample of interesting areas in Oregon that have provided an abundance of species for me to photograph and share on the internet. Before going further, I want to acknowledge several individuals who have contributed materially in one way or another to my efforts related to accumulating images of Oregon plants. Aaron Liston has been my sponsor for my courtesy professor appointment at Oregon State University. Also in the botany department and botany and plant pathology department, Dick Halse has been an ongoing flora mentor and frequent botanizing companion ever since I returned to Oregon. Tanya Harvey, especially in my early days here, shared her unrivaled knowledge of the Western Cascades flora. And Ken Chambers, throughout the time I've been here, has shared his vast knowledge of special groups of plants in Oregon. The OFP staff, especially Linda, Stephen, Thea, and Katie, have helped me very much in terms of technical and moral support. Bobby, my wife, and Melissa, my daughter, have offered companionship, interminable patience, and field and logistical support. I'd also like to acknowledge the excellent field guides by Russ Jolly for the Columbia Gorge, and Robert Ross and Henny Chambers for the Iron Mountain guide, both of which made it possible for me to very efficiently locate and capture a very large number of my earliest Oregon plant images. Special thanks to my brother, Dr. Robert L. Carr, for many shared botanizing experience and for his contributions of nearly 22,000 images to the Oregon and Washington image galleries. There are two primary goals for my Oregon Flora image project that is posted on the University of Hawaii servers. First, to capture and post multiple high-resolution images of native and naturalized Oregon plant species and varieties that illustrate features essential for their identification. And secondly, to document their occurrence at a particular time and place. This is the camera equipment that I take into the field. The camera has a built-in flash commander mode that works with this particular flash unit to provide the proper exposure. The light baffles on each flash unit are removable to provide full flash power for objects further from the lens. Each flash unit can be directed independently over a wide arc or even easily removed and placed some distance from the camera if desired. And no, I didn't forget my tripod. I just don't use one for the following reasons. The short macro lens allows the target to be very close to the light source, thus permitting proper exposure at very small lens apertures and high shutter speeds. These parameters promote depth of field while the dark background increases contrast. The same parameters eliminate blurring due to motion of the target. This approach saves extremely valuable time in the field that would otherwise be lost to tripod positioning and waiting for ideal wind and light conditions, which may never occur on any given day. This is, when I started this effort, opportunities to locate species for which images were needed abounded nearby. As the project advanced, longer trips and more meticulous planning were required to ensure a reasonable return of needed images. The steps now generally followed are listed on this slide. I don't expect you to read them. I'm not going to, but I will talk about 2 or 3 of them as we proceed. Although not currently available on the OregonFlora.org website, this page is from an Excel spreadsheet that identifies the number of field images available for each of the 4,704 taxa occurring in Oregon, including 941 taxa that have none. I have permission from Thea Jaster to share this file with anyone who might want it. The primary source of location information for anyone hoping to find taxa lacking field images is the OSU herbarium. The specimens housed therein have labels that provide location and other useful information, as well as visual cues that may help one recognize target species in the field. For anyone working at home or otherwise unable to visit the herbarium in Corvallis, specimen data can be downloaded from the Oregon Flora website. The Pacific Northwest Herbarium Consortium is also a good source of location data. High-resolution images of many specimens are also available that can be helpful for identification. Using the data that I had assembled for 304 species lacking images, I plotted the 600 best locations on this DeLorme computer map. With a GPS device attached to my laptop, I can view locations of target species along any route in real time. When I am lucky enough to locate a target species, I record the precise location data and capture numerous images of as many available features as I deem relevant. If suitable material is available, I also collect a small representative sample to verify identification and potentially provide the opportunity to capture images of overlooked or inadequately documented features under more controlled conditions than exist in the field. Once the metadata are integrated with the image files by the cataloging program, the most useful ones are selected for image processing to further enhance their utility. The dark image on the left is an extreme example of one that initially looked virtually useless. However, in Photoshop, this image was used to generate the 3 separate images at the right, each cropped and processed to enhance different aspects of the whole. In addition, although the object was originally photographed against a scale in inches, Photoshop provided the means to add the scale in millimeters to each of the 3 posted images. Each batch of images that I donate to OSU or WTU is accompanied by the corresponding data spreadsheet generated by my cataloging program. Here's the opening page of my Oregon Flora image project on the University of Hawaii server. The homepage link at the lower left connects a page with additional links to sites related to my instructional and research efforts during my 30-year tenure at UH, including thousands of additional images of Hawaiian plants in various categories. My images that are relevant to the WTU gallery of the University of Washington are also posted there. They now have more than 16,000 of my images and 15,000 of my brother Bob's. Okay, now we'll get to some real images of Oregon plants. These remaining images will be presented alphabetically by family, starting here with Lomatium bradshawii in the Apiaceae or carrot family. Bradshaw's Lomatium is endemic to its rather limited remaining habitat in the Willamette Valley and is considered endangered by both state and federal government. So I'll point out here that each slide is going to have this information in this particular order, with the scientific name first, then the family, then the common name, and on the left in red letters, the status of the plant. If in this case, they're considered, this species is considered endangered in both Oregon and by the federal government. If there's only one letter represented, that stands for its status in Oregon. On the right, abbreviated, is the county in which the particular images were photographed. In this case, Benton County. This slide shows 2 species. It shows Claytonia umbellata in the Montiaceae, as well as Lomatium minus in the Apiaceae. They were photographed in Wasco County, and the Lomatium, this is one of my favorite ones, and the Claytonia, both are strictly restricted within this basalt channel, which is quite interesting at this particular site in Wasco County near Shaniko. Very attractive species. Lomatium minus and Claytonia umbellata. And here we have Hestingsia bracteosa, variety bracteosa, in the asparagus family, Asparagaceae, the large flowered rush lily, considered threatened here in Oregon, and photographs were taken in Josephine County. There is also a purple variant of this in the same species that occurs either sometimes with the white one or in separate colonies. This species is considered endangered both federally and by the state. It is the Willamette Valley daisy, Irrigron decumbens, in the Asteraceae, the sunflower family, sometimes also called the Compositae, photographed in Lynn County and occurring in rather restricted remnant portions of the little remaining prairie in the Willamette Valley that hasn't been replaced by development. This is Pyracoma radiata, another asteraceous plant. The Snake River goldenweed, photographed in Baker County. It's a rather coarse, upright, but still herbaceous plant on dry slopes, pretty much restricted to that part of Eastern Oregon. The inside out flower is in the Oregon grape family, Berberidaceae. This is Vancouveria chrysantha. This one is somewhat restricted to Southeast Oregon, near the California border. The white flowered species in this genus is much more common. I suspect many of you have seen that species. I think it's Vancouveria hexandra, is it? Something like that. Photographed in Josephine County here, this species, the yellow inside out flower. In the borage family, Amsynchia carinata, plant very restricted in Malheur County, considered threatened here in Oregon. Part of its distinction from other species, several species in this same genus, have to do with features of the calyx and also the very prominent pustules at the base of the stiff hairs on the leaves and elsewhere on the plant. In the same family is the hairy popcorn tongue twister. I better have a sip of water here. Excuse me. The hairy popcorn flower, considered endangered by both the state and the federal government. Plagiobothris hirtus, again somewhat restricted in the foothills off the Central Valley, down a bit south of here. In the, let's see if I skipped over a couple here. That should be the next one, the Brassicaceae. Mustard family. This is McDonald's rock cress, Erebus macdonaldiana, considered endangered both in Oregon and by the federal government. Often occurring on serpentine soils in Southeast Oregon and into California. Same family, the mustard family, Davis's peppergrass, Lepidium davicii, is found on these very barren playas where virtually or very little other representation of other species. But, excuse me, apparently a good habitat for Davis's peppergrass. Photographed in Malheur County. Thelopodium eucosmum, also Brassicaceae, is the arrowleaf thelopody. It's photographed here in Wheeler County, and I believe this species is more or less restricted to that county. This is a very rare species, not seen by too many folks here in Oregon. It's in the bellflower family, Campanulaceae, and it's an unusual aquatic member of that family. Most of the stems are under the surface of the water. At appropriate times, they elongate and float to the surface where the flowers are emergent. The images on the left were taken by my daughter Melissa in Spokane County, Washington, near Cheney. On the right, we have probably the few flowers existing of this plant from here in Oregon, where it has been rediscovered recently. From Clackamas County is where these were taken. The water Howellia aquatilis. I don't know what to call this family, the Ericaceae, huckleberry family. Copperbush is this one. It's the only member of this genus here in Oregon. At its southern limit of its distribution, it goes on up into Canada and Alaska. These were photographed on Saddle Mountain in Clatsop County. And the species name is Cladothamnus pyrroliflorus. Pyrroliflorus alludes to the similarity of the flower to those of the genus Pyrola, which is an herbaceous plant with several species here in Oregon. But this is a woody shrub. Copperbush. There are several interesting species in a few genera in the family Ericaceae that totally lack chlorophyll. Therefore, they are dependent in an association, in this case, with a fungus. They're called mycotrophic plants. So they get all their nutrients needed for growth and development taken directly from this fungus, associated with, obviously, the underground plants of parts of the plants. So we have three genera represented here: Allotropa, candy stick; Pterospora, the pine drops; Hematomes congestum, the gnome plant. Several of you, I'm sure, will be familiar with the Indian pipe that is totally white without much of any coloration. Now we come to the very large family, Fabaceae, also in par, or at least in one interpretation, referred to as the Leguminosae. Depending on how you divide this family up, it is very large, about the third largest family of flowering plants if you put them all together. This is also in a large genus, Astragalus, a very prominent genus in Western North America. We have several species here in Oregon. This is Astragalus diaphanous, variety diurnus, the John Day milkvetch. There's another more common variety of this, which is quite distinctive. If I were treating this genus, I'd probably put this as a separate species. And it is considered threatened. It's very much more restricted than the other variety, considered threatened here in Oregon. This is another Astragalus, kind of quite different from the previous one. It looks pretty wispy. It looks like it might be on its last legs, but this is the normal appearance. It has thin, wispy, several branches, and that habit or appearance is also made more prominent by the fact that in the inset you can see the leaflets are extremely reduced, and the rachis, the central axis of the leaf, is about the same diameter as the almost thread-like stems. The flowers, though, are just like most any other pea or bean in this family, and certainly other members of this genus, Astragalus. Let's see, that was photographed in Malheur County, and again considered threatened, Astragalus sterilis. Same family, Kincaid's lupin, in the genus Lupinus, Lupinus oreganus, and still in the Fabaceae. Some of you will undoubtedly be aware of the Fendler's blue butterfly that has the larva, the caterpillar is dependent on this species of lupin for as its food plant. Lupinus oreganus, threatened in both the state and nationally. This is another lupin that has to rank among my favorites, in part because I like these tiny plants that are hard to find and might be considered belly plants. You almost have to get prone to be able to get good pictures of them. Lupinus uncialis, the inch-high lupin. I'm not sure I've seen any of these as that tall. They're very low growing, very small plants. You can see the reference there of the penny in the top right photograph. Flowers, though, are typical pea-like or bean-like flowers. Being annual, as several other annuals, these plants don't always come up every year in the same location, in a given location where they're known to occur in general. Depends on moisture availability for any particular year for germination and establishment. As a clover, we have many species of clover, and as a clover, this is one of my favorites. It occurs in these barren habitats, so it's very conspicuous. And it's just plain attractive, I think, the color of the size of the flowers and so on. Trifolium Liburgii, Liburg's clover, photographed here in Harney County in the Fabaceae. Now, many of these plants don't have official status that I'm showing you here, but almost all of them are pretty restricted, if not outright rare. This one's considered threatened in Oregon. Phacelia argentea. Argentea refers to silver, and undoubtedly to the lustrous or silvery tone of reflections or highlights on the leaves. It's a coastal plant, grows in sandy areas along the coast. It's in the waterleaf family, Hydrophyllaceae, silvery Phacelia, Phacelia argentea. Now we come to the lily family. This is Cox's Mariposa lily from Douglas County. I think it might be restricted to that county. It's very narrowly distributed in any case, usually on serpentine substrates, Calochortus coxii. Some of the time, we have several species of Calochortus, and of course, and some of them are called cat's ears. Others are referred to as some sort of Mariposa lily. Fritillaria has several species here in Oregon. It's also in the Liliaceae. This is photographed in Josephine County. It's called Gintner's fritillary. And there's quite a bit of evidence to suggest that this is of hybrid origin. It is considered endangered both in Oregon and also is listed on the federal register of endangered species. And the next slide shows something to do with its putative hybrid origin. On the left and right are two normal non-hybrid species of Fritillaria. On the left, recurva, and on the right, aphanus. And in the center above is the putative hybrid. If you look at the petals of all three, you'll notice perhaps that on the aphanus on the right, C, the petals actually, the tips come forward or forward leaning and the incurved at the tips. Whereas recurva, the name implies and refers to the strongly recurved or reflexed corolla parts. Whereas the putative hybrid, they're sort of moderately recurved, but not nearly as obviously as Fritillaria recurva. So again, it's Fritillaria gintneri in the center. The nectaries are also quite different. They're more or less the length of the perianth parts in aphanus, whereas you can't even see their way at the bottom of the perianth parts in recurva. And then you can see them moderately long in the putative hybrid, Fritillaria gintneri. In the same family, still with the Liliaceae, we have the western lily, Lilium occidentale. It is considered endangered both federally and by the state of Oregon. It's a very rare plant. It exists typically in clusters of very few individuals in a few scattered, somewhat widely spaced sites along mostly the south coast of Oregon and a bit into California, where it's also considered rare. Lilium occidentale. This slide has two varieties or subspecies, as they're treated here, of a member of the meadowfoam family, Limnanthaceae. This is Limnanthes pumila, subspecies grandiflora, which has the very fuzzy hairs, I'll say, on especially the calyx and elsewhere on some elsewhere on the plant. And it's found in the vicinity of Table Rocks, but the other one in the lower left, subspecies pumila, or small flowered version, has very few hairs, and it is only found on the Table Rocks. This is in Jackson County. In the Loess ACE, in Malheur County, we can find Mentzelia mollis, the smooth Mentzelia. It has more conspicuous flowers than many species of Mentzelia. We have several, but the plants are very small. So it's approaching a belly plant in size. One interesting thing about the fruits of these, they have stiff recurved hairs that if you toss them at someone's shirt, they'll stay right where they hit the shirt. Good dispersal mechanism. Sidalcia nelsoniana is found kind of scattered through the Willamette Valley. Not too common. It's considered both threatened by both state and federal governments. It's in the mallow family, Malvaceae, photographed here in Benton County. Sidalcia nelsonia. In the 4 o'clock family, Nyctaginaceae, we have the rare pink sand verbena, Abronia umbellata, variety breviflora. We also have a yellow sand verbena, which is more common. The pink sand verbena is considered endangered. And it usually consists of a few individuals, again, at a few scattered sites, mostly towards the south end of the Oregon coast. Photographed here in Curry County. Pink sand verbena. Caminerian latifolium is in the evening primrose family, Onagraceae. And this is the dwarf fireweed. Probably, I'm sure some of you have seen this plant, but virtually all of you, I'm sure, would have seen the other species in this genus, the simply called fireweed, the Caminerian angustifolium. That's the common one. This is not so common. It extends on up into Canada and even Alaska. Here photographed in the Wallowa Mountains in Wallowa County. Enothera wolfii is another threatened plant. This is photographed in Curry County. Wolf's evening primrose, Enothera wolfii. This is pretty rare, pretty hard to find down along the south coast of the state. Now we get to the family Orobanchaceae. All of the species in this family, many genera, several genera, are parasitic. They attach to the roots of host plants, not the stems, but the underground portions. And they a large number of them have some chlorophyll, which is at least partially functional. And reportedly, some of these may be able to go through their life cycle without forming these attachments, but virtually all of them do. And they are much more vigorous if they make those haustorial connections to the host plants. I say eureka about this one because I looked for it for a long time at virtually all of the locations known in the state. It's actually a widespread species, but there are several widespread species that when you go to look for them these days, you often can't find them where they have been previously reported. That's certainly the case with this one in my experience, although it is an annual also, and may be subject a lot to vagaries of moisture ability in the spring. So this one obviously is green, has some chlorophyll, but nevertheless is a hemiparasite. Photographed in Klamath County, Castanea campestris, variety campestris, orobanchaceae, the meadow paintbrush. This is another hemiparasite. This is not very green. You can see a little bit greenish there in the vicinity of the inflorescence. This is the salt marsh birdbeak, Chloropyron maritimum, subspecies palustre. There is an inland subspecies of this same species that is found in alkaline soil situations and with some moisture generally, at least vernally, but this one's strictly along the coast. Salt marsh birdbeak, photographed in Coos County, endangered in Oregon. This is a holoparasite in the family. It has no chlorophyll. The seeds must be essentially in contact with a potential host plant before they will germinate, and haustoria must be rapidly produced in order for the plant to grow and develop, taking all of the necessary products from its host. Copsiopsis strobelacea, orobanchaceae, California ground cone, photographed here in Jackson County. I'm going to show you three poppies, all of them small. The first two I would call belly plants for sure. They're in the poppy family, Papaveraceae. This one is the yellow pygmy poppy. It's an annual, as is the next one. And again, it's brightly colored, but the flowers in the whole plant is very small. It took me a long time to locate a population of this. And again, I suspect that they don't always come up in every site where they have been previously seen, depending on moisture availability. Photographed in Harney County, the yellow pygmy poppy, Canbia aurea. Mechanella oregana is another member of the family, called the white mechanella, photographed here in Wasco County, where there are maybe a few. I've seen it in one location, obviously, where this was photographed along the Columbia Gorge. Otherwise, it's known only disjunctly in Jackson County. I think Melissa and I both saw that on Table Rock in Jackson County, sorry. More conspicuous, but still small in stature, is Platystemon californicus, Papaveraceae, the cream cups, photographed here in Coos County. It's more conspicuous in part because it appears in this more open sand dune or sandy habitats along the coast. It's basically not that common. A few locations pretty much south along the coast. I first saw this in California, where it's more common. This is Diplicus tricolor. Some of you, I'm sure a lot of you will probably think, no, that's Mimulus. But it has been some time now since Mimulus was divided into three, two genera here with several species. Diplicus, one, Erythranthe, the other. This is another one that is small stature, but very attractive plant. And it is subject to the whims of flooding more than anything, or vernal moisture. It can be found in vernal pools here in Oregon and down into California. But in near terms, it's basically a denizen of the floodplain of the Willamette. I know exactly where these plants are. I've had someone anxious to find them the last 3 or 4 years, and they haven't been able to find them at all, where I found several of these plants previously. I've seen them on a couple of different occasions, different years. Only one year when they were quite plentiful, at least in one small area in the Marys River floodplain, quite near where I live. So the tricolored monkey flower in the Frimaceae. This is Gratiola heterosepala in the plantain family, Plantaginaceae, the Boggs Lake hedge hyssop. You'll have a hard time finding this in Oregon. As far as is known, it occurs in 2 very small vernal ponds about 10 yards apart, about a mile from the California border in Lake County. It's a belly plant, but I'm not going to get on my belly in the habitat here. I stepped into the edge of this habitat at one point, and I almost lost my boot. So no, I'm not going to get prone here. Here I am more than happy to get prone for this belly plant for the reason that thunder and lightning was raging all around me, and this was a very flat terrain. So getting down on my belly was probably the safest place to be at that particular time. I still was kind of in a hurry to get these pictures because the rain was about to come, and it did. Colomia macrocalix in the phlox family, Polemoniaceae, bristle-flowered Colomia, photographed in Malheur County. Here's another belly plant, Gymnosteris or Gymnosteris nudicalis, Polemoniaceae, the large flowered Gymnosteris. There is a smaller one. They're both belly plants, more or less, especially the other species. And one of their notable features is that they only have 2 leaves. And those are the cotyledons that are out of focus at the base of the stem that you see there to the very extreme lower left. The inset shows a closer view of the cotyledons. The appendages you see above are considered floral bracts rather than true leaves. Now, the loud buzzing noise took me a while to locate, even though it was close by. It was a very large coiled rattlesnake. So I was very hesitant to get down at my belly when he was that close, at least. Fortunately, in Eastern Oregon, if you've ever collected, botanized around there, cow chips are all too common. So I hurled several towards the rattlesnake, and it finally slithered away in the opposite direction. So I felt brave enough to get down and snap a few pictures. Large flower Gymnosteris from Malheur County. This is Eriogonum crosbyi, variety crosbyi. It's a rare plant in Eastern Oregon, considered threatened, photographed here in Lake County. on a very seemingly sterile, barren habitat, but appropriate for this species, obviously. It's a large genus. We have a large number of species of the of Eriogonum. This is Crosby's buckwheat in the buckwheat family here in Lake County. The Glacia livigata is pictured here in the Primulaceae, the dwarf primrose. I'm sure that you folks, many of you up there in the Portland area, have seen this plant hanging on the vertical cliffs, perhaps along the Columbia Gorge. They often occur there where it's dangerous to try to reach them to photograph them. This was a safe location, but not an easy one to get to. It was on the summit of Cone Peak, and there's no trail that goes to the summit. So for me, even 10 years or so ago, it was a tough pull, but it was worth it. There was a nice paintbrush up there too. Now here's one that many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with. Delphinium leucophaeum, the pale larkspur, this photographed in Washington County. In fact, about the only place it occurs is in the greater Portland metropolitan area, in some little nooks here and there where there is suitable habitat left. Delphinium leucophaeum in the buttercup family, Ranunculaceae, pale larkspur. Endangered here in Oregon. This, I suspect none of you have seen in the wild. I have reason to believe these are the first photographs taken of this species in Oregon. This is Carter's buttercup, as I finally discovered. Ranunculus bonariensis, variety Trisepalus in the buttercup family, Ranunculaceae. This was the first record of the plant, otherwise known only from about 130 miles to the south, where it begins a distribution at Redding, California, and goes south from there into South America, I believe. But this is the northernmost known location for this species. It's a small plant, as you see, and has tiny flowers. Found it in a little vernal pool near the Table Rock area in Jackson County. This is one of my favorite families, Saxifragaceae. There's several really neat genera in this family. And this is one of my favorites of the genera. This is Darmera peltata in the Saxifragaceae, the great shield leaf. You can see that the flowers, plants start flowering somewhat before the leaves expand. Probably mid-May or so is a good time to look for it. It occurs, fortunately for me, very close by. Just a little the other side of Philomath from me here, and right off the main highway, Highway 20. And it takes some time, probably mid to late June, even early July perhaps, for the leaves to fully expand. And the umbrella part can be about 4 decimeters across, so they're good-sized leaves. Neat plants. They probably get established on these little moss islands or edges of the flowing streams and send out rhizomes that attach firmly to the bottom of the creek, the stream. This is essentially the northernmost distribution of this plant. It goes south from here into California. Hit the right button here. This is the last I have of the regularly scheduled images. Viola ocellata in the violet family, Violaceae, the pinto violet. photographed here in Douglas County on a small BLM parcel that unfortunately happened to be adjacent to the big man with the big club shouting profanities. We no sooner had gotten 100 yards or more up into this little parcel, and he started yelling at us from his yard, I don't know, 200 or 300 yards away. But he didn't stay there. He jumped on his ATV and came roaring up to us with his big club, faced us off. I happened to be there with another person, a retired BLM person, but we could not communicate with him. It was one way, all at us. So I guess you'd say we might have shrunk away, like shrinking violet. But no, we headed directly away from him down towards our car, and fortunately found a little population of this violet, which is not very common in Oregon, although it's been confused with another species. So that was all on my regular agenda, and I don't know if I'll check with whoever's in charge here. I do have a few more that I can show, depending on where you want to go from this point, time-wise. Am I able to hear anybody?
And Gerry, can you hear me?
See, I can't hear. Oh, my speaker may have gone off. I need to turn it on. It'll take a second.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you now, Gina.
Okay. Well,
You
thank
want
you.
to look at a few more or wrap it up?
I got a few questions in the chat for you here.
All right.
If you want to address those questions first, and then we could see if there's some time if you want to
Okay.
do some more. First actually was a comment of somebody saying that they love the deadpan delivery of your adventurous botanizing. I think that was in reference to your Hawaiian
Yeah.
days. That sounded like quite the initiation to the islands there. But the next actual question, there was a question of the host plant of the California ground cone, and somebody chimed in that it might be an Arctostaphylos species.
You know, I don't know specifically in that case. I think I've read about it, but have probably forgotten whatever I read many years ago before I even started photographing here. What I can say is that the hemiparasites are usually very much generalists in their host. In fact, there have been a paper or two that reported as many as like 75 or 80 different species that they documented as serving as hosts, and basically anything that happened to be nearby, for a lot of things like pedicularis, for example. But the holoparasites tend to be restricted, not always to a single species, and sometimes even across different families. But some of them are pretty much one-to-one with a particular host plant. I don't happen to know the ground cone. I can't say it now. Copsiopsis situation.
Okay.
But Arctostaphylos would not be, I wouldn't doubt that necessarily.
Yeah. Next question. Somebody asked, can you please explain, quote, vagaries of moisture exposure?
Not so much exposure, but availability. By vagaries of moisture availability, I'm simply referring to the fact that annual precipitation varies quite widely, especially when it comes. And for annuals, many of them are very finely attuned to a threshold of moisture to even germinate, And if they don't get that, you don't see them that year. Sometimes annuals will even make it through. I used to work on California, I mentioned in this talk, and their annuals. And I would go to places where it was wall-to-wall species X one year and virtually nothing the next year. So it's, you know, if it's an extreme drought and you don't know really what the critical limit is for a given species, but if it's just too dry, they don't make an appearance. So vagaries, I'm just referring to the chance chance related to whether it's going to be a moist, you know, wet enough year or not. Does that
Okay.
help?
I think that clarifies that, yes. And somebody else mentioned finally the mystery of why all of our organ plants are hosted on the University of Hawaii's server. There you go.
Well, they're every posting that I make on my site on the University of Hawaii server winds up on the Oregon Flora site, every image, as they get to it. They don't always have the time to keep up with my postings. So sometimes at some given time, there may be some species on my server, on my site, that don't yet, that not yet have made it to the Oregon Flora site. The other thing is that the Oregon Flora site used to have sort of a separate photo gallery. It doesn't have that now. You can get to all the images, but you get to them in a different way. It's not quite as flexible as if you think of University of Washington's gallery, the herbarium's gallery. Some of you at least expressed that you were familiar with it. It is an excellent photo gallery. There are many ways you can address the images in their gallery, several different ways, and you can search for an image by a particular person, or it's just very approachable, very flexible. I'd say it's probably I don't know of any better image gallery in the nation. It's an excellent image gallery. And while they're not interested in plants that are endemic, that don't occur in Washington, they do take all of my images that occur in Washington, and I give them all of and my brothers also. So they have all of those, but they don't have all of the ones that are only found in Oregon and not in Washington. Otherwise, they get everything that I get.
Nice.
So they're available on the UH, all of them on the UH, and the same ones eventually on the Oregon Flora site. But they don't have I mean, they need to do several different things. So they can't always take, I was traditionally giving them a batch of some hundreds of images each season. Well, they can't just work on those if they're needing to do something else at the time, but they eventually get them on there. There can be a lag.
Yeah, I imagine there's quite a bit of photos out there.
So, yeah, I'm not hiding them, and I encourage people, if they want to know what I've got, when I've got it posted, they can go to the UH site. It'll be there if I've got it posted.
Nice. That's the say the name of that one again for everyone.
The UH site, University of Hawaii?
Yeah.
Well, it is right here. It's kind of complicated, and it's not appearing. My what do I call it? Or cutting it off for me. Are you seeing the whole thing?
Yeah, I see it.
Mine is partly covered by my control icons. I'm not sure how to make them go away.
Yeah, we can see it here.
Yeah, if you see that, and it's being recorded. So I forgot to mention it, but I did go quite quickly over some of the slides that had a lot of writing on them. I talked about it, but not what the information was on the slide. But I was going to mention, remind people it's being recorded, so you can always get back to that. I mean, you know about that. I didn't know it, but
Mhm.
that's the case, is it not?
Yeah, we'll have the recording available on our YouTube page after this. We had the next question is, do you have any suggestions for folks that are interested in seeking out underdocumented flora in the Portland area? Any species or groups that we could look for that might be informative for the state's flora?
I showed briefly a slide that was just an excerpt from a list of all of the taxa in the flora that have no images. And I mentioned that I have permission to share that with anybody who might want the whole spreadsheet, not just the little excerpt. For anybody that might want that, they could email me and I could attach it to an email back to them if they would like to have that. And not only that, it shows all the field images that are available, not just the ones that don't have. They show how many images that the Oregon Flora Project website has for every species. And for subspecies, it's a very large number. But I'm focused on the ones that are 1, 2, or 0. Basically.
Did you give us-
Spreadsheet has it all, if anybody would like it.
Did you give us your email address somewhere? I don't see that. This is where you're a brave person to share your personal email.
Oh, well, all they have to do is Google my name.
Okay.
And especially if they, either Oregon Flora or Hawaii. I mean, because of all I've done with the silversword stuff, if they just Google my name,
There is kind of an important,
Gerald D. Carr, University of Hawaii. That's one thing that'll get something. I can give my email right now. Verbally, will that work for people? Or can I? Is that possible? Put in chat, I guess. I don't know.
yeah, Melissa, can you put that in the chat? Oh, there it is. She got it.
Huh?
Yeah, Melissa put it in the chat.
Well, Gina, you have my email.
Yeah, but I think it's in the chat now as well too for folks if
Okay.
they want to
Okay.
get that.
There is kind of an important question from Erica Skadson about you collecting anything for the herbarium when you're out there photographing. And
If it's something that I have found that hasn't been seen for a very long time, or we have very little material of, if I know it, and if there's ample material in the field, I will collect them and make a specimen. So I have, I've been doing this now for 16 years or so, and I could look at my, anyhow, I have, I don't know, probably 30 or 40 herbarium sheets that I've made of things that are needed, needed for documentation. Is that what the question?
Yeah, that address. There's a second part to that question as well. Do you get paid to take these images or are you monetizing them somehow?
I get paid for it? Are you kidding me?
You get paid in
I have
experience.
a courtesy appointment at the university, Oregon State University. I get paid nothing until Cordley started demolishing the part of the building that we were in. I had a little space, you know, I shared an office actually with the Oregon Flora Project people. Just one office, three of us.
Wow.
This is something I do for me because I'm interested in plants and finding these plants. I've traveled all over the state. I just put $60 in my car for gas today. Not for, I say that because I think it's the first time I've spent that much on gas in this car since I've had it.
How many cars have you gone through?
But
You've probably gone through 3 or 4 cars.
I do this for fun.
Crazy.
True labor of love.
Some of you probably know Dick Halls.
I had him as a
He and I
professor.
have made many trips together. Sometimes he'll drive, sometimes I'll drive. So yeah, no, this is a labor of love. And I'm not patting myself on the back about that. This is just me. You know, this is it.
Absolutely.
So I'm kind of down in the dumps now because for 2 years I haven't felt that it's safe for me to go on an overnight venture. And at this point, almost everything that I need is at one corner or other of the state, mostly in the east side of the state. And I can't go there and back in one day. I need to, and I don't have a vehicle in which I can sleep, or, you know, I don't camp outside. So this COVID situation has been sad for me. Well, I shouldn't say that. I mean, it's a lot sadder for many other reasons, but it has curtailed my ability to have this fun, I guess I could say.
Well, hopefully we'll get back to it this summer. It'll be interesting to see how the flowers did after that heat wave last year. But
the only thing I get now and then, and Dick helps some on this because he kind of watches out for naturalized plants. So I just got through photographing 4 things that I didn't have. 2 of them, though, are just like garden escapes kind of things. And 2 of them are naturalized. But that's for anything nearby, that's sort of what I'm down to, because I have images of most anything else that I could get on a. There are some things I get on a one day, you know, long trip. I mean, more than once I've gone all the way to California border and back in one day, sometimes for one plant. Sometimes I didn't even get it. It's a quest. It's
Gerry,
fun.
I think a few people are asking if you could please write a book about your anecdotal experiences with you and your brother.
Yeah, well, you know, I had a hard time shortening this down. I cut a lot of little things out of there.
I bet you had to.
And I couldn't possibly do it just talking, or it would have gone on for, you know, hours. So I had to do that first part as a narrative. Sorry about that, but
oh no, I love it. Anybody else who wants to go ahead and turn on their video and go, let's get into a little more informal chit chat